for joining us for our, it's Jenny. Hello, Jenny. Thank you all for joining us for our Kid Account casual conversation around dismissal practices and tips and tricks to help you guys get out. My name is Amanda Bresnay. I'm a retired educator, been with Kid Account for a couple of years. And one of the things I miss about being in education is being able to give back to my peers and just help and do PD. And so I reached out to a handful of people for some advice and said, hey, how can we give back? And we have a lot of questions that surround dismissal on a regular basis. And so we are thankful for our volunteers who have joined us today to just help give some advice on how to make your dismissal run a little smoother. So I'm going to allow our experts in dismissal to introduce themselves and just tell a little bit about them. And then as you guys have questions, you can put those in our chat and we will present those to our experts to have some conversations around today. So Dr. Sladik, I will begin with you if you want to go ahead and give yourself an introduction there.
My name is Jenna Sladik, and I'm a principal in the St. Louis, Missouri area in a small town, Pacific, Missouri. I have used Kid Account in 2 different schools in my career, and both schools were made up of different sizes. And so I was a principal at a K-4 elementary of about 200 students, and we were able to utilize Kid Account during dismissal from the classroom, which was really nice. That helps just with supervision of the kids and less transition for the kids. And so that was a lot more safer, I feel like, for our environment. And then now I'm in a bigger school of about 460 students, and we dismiss kind of diversely depending on the grade level. We have a common area for our car riders and our buses. And then our K and 1 students still sort of dismiss from their classroom, but we have just like landing zones. And so we make sure at the end of the day, all 460 students are checked out through Kid Account, so we know exactly who picked them up and where they went.
Thank you. And we'll probably be talking about those landing zones. I think that's probably something someone will have a question about. All right. And Mrs. Benham, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi there. My name is Ashley Benham. I am the assistant principal at a pre-K through 4th grade elementary school near Huntsville, Alabama. We have about 730 students, and we have 3 different dismissal areas. We have a pre-K car line, we have a K through 4 car line, and we have a bus line. And, we have to shuttle 730 students out of our building. So it's a well-oiled machine. I've been in education, though, about 26 years, and I've had, multiple different types of schools and settings. I was in a middle school setting, and with students pre-K through 4, it's really important to keep up with where they go. And that's always a scary thing, to make sure they're safe. So Kid Accounts really helped us do that.
Thank you. Dr. Martin?
Sure, I'm Waller Martin, and I'm the proud retired principal at Brookwood Elementary School in Enterprise, Alabama. It's kind of the southeastern corner of the state. And I was very fortunate to be able to help open a brand new school, which was an early education center. At one time, all I had was kindergarten and pre-K. I had 28 kindergarten units on my campus and 5 pre-K units. I had about 650 4 and 5-year-olds on my campus, and I never lost a one. But I knew we had to do something. We had to have a system or a program in place for an accountability standpoint of view, and just from a safety standpoint of view. And I saw Kid Account at a conference, a national NASP conference, and I thought to myself, you mean there's a product out here that actually does this, that they make something like this? And when Amanda asked me to do this, I said, well, Amanda, I'll do it for 3 reasons. Number one is I use the product. I use the product myself, and I'm talking about something that I've had experience with. And number 2, I know the product works. I've seen the benefits of the product. We use it for car line. We use it for bus. We use it for daycare. We use it for pre-K daycare and car line. And we also use it for walkers, as well. Beforehand, our dismissal was a security nightmare. We went outside and there was no accountability. There were people all over the place. Now we dismiss from the classroom and it's a whole lot safer. It's a whole lot better. And the third reason that I said I would do this is as a principal, if somebody else was doing something or using something and it made their life easier, I wanted to know about it. And so that was, the reason, the format, and the thought process. So glad to be here with everybody today.
And I neglected to add Olivia Curley to the list, but Olivia, why don't you give us a little quick introduction of you as well?
I'm Olivia Curley. I was a teacher for 5 years, one at Farmington in Missouri, and then the other one at Park Hills Central, also in Missouri. My husband's in the military now, and we are moved to Texas. So Kid Account gave me the opportunity to work from here and still be a part of education and making a difference for people. So
she does a great job too. All right. Well, while we wait for our participants to put any questions that they may have in the chat so we can share them, I do have a few questions that we can kind of start with, and you guys can jump in where you feel comfortable. This is going to be a casual Q&A. So, whatever questions you'd like to answer would be lovely. So first one is, just talking about the chaos of the day. The first, probably biggest chaos that you guys have are dismissal changes that come in at all times, right? You'll probably get them first thing in the morning and then 5 minutes before the bell rings. So tell me a little bit about what structures you have in place, what rules you have in place in order for those dismissal changes to actually go to the teachers where they need to go.
I'll jump on that. I'll take it real fast. The thing, and again, back to the program that I like about it. So all of our dismissal changes are pretty much spearheaded through one point of contact. Our parents don't go to the teacher. They don't go to any. It goes straight to central office or centrally to our office person, our clerical aide. And she's able to take this and to enter this information, enter this data into the system. And, our teachers check it, right before we begin dismissal in the afternoon. Now, they have to make the conscientious effort to do that. But, let's face it, at the end of the day, they're wrapping up, they're packing up. And I don't think that, I'm going to be interrupting an algebra test, for them to have to check, if Johnny has changed it from a car rider to a bus today. So that takes out the paperwork, all those notes, and we have a time. I think it's either 2 or 2:30. That's a hard time. That if there's a change, we ask. Don't get me wrong. If it's an emergency, something's happened, somebody's going to the hospital, we're going to do what we can to work with them. But we ask that no changes be made after that. As we're getting ready to start moving in dismissal, and it makes it hard if you've already sent that kid to the lunchroom because you think they're riding a bus, and then Granny's decided to pick them up. It's, especially if it's a kindergartner, the chance of that child getting turned around or lost, or when I say lost, that's a relative term. You know what I mean? So
in the wrong line, right?
Wrong line. Yeah. So,
Absolutely. So Dr. Sladek and Mrs. Benham, do you guys have hard stops for changes as well? And then do they only communicate with your front office staff as for your dismissal changes?
Yeah, that was, I was kind of going to go the same route as Waller of thinking about before Kid Account, what did we do? And so before Kid Account, we have a before and after school program called SAC. And so parents would tell the SAC teacher how they were getting home. And the SAC teacher, after their before care, they move on with their day and the kid comes to school. Or yes, it would, we used Class Dojo where the teacher and the parent can directly exchange messages. And so that's how they would make dismissal changes. And so all of these changes before Kid Account were going, as notes through the office at the end of the day, or, just we weren't aware of any of the changes happening. And so everybody was on different pages. And so, we walked around dismissal with these walkie-talkies trying to get a hold of all of the communication. And they're asking for a kid in one place and you're thinking they're supposed to go to another place. And so once we found the Kid Account program, yes, it was definitely a training and over-communicated procedure that we had to put in place, and we still do because we still have online platforms that teachers and parents can communicate all the time. And so we still just have to kind of, we call it training our parents to, everything goes through the office and everything has to go through the office before 3 o'clock. Our dismissal here is at closer to 3:30. So we try to do it 30 minutes before. And then, at the school at Zitzman now, we do have landing spots where we start our movement, kind of like Waller talked about. And it is an expectation for our staff to bring up the kid account dismissal screen. And so on that, like the kids look at it, it's on the smart board. I mean, everybody's looking at that screen to verify the latest change. I mean, I'll have third graders pass me in the hall and they'll say, well, Dr. Slake, I didn't know my mom called and changed me to car rider. And I was like, well, she did, you were busy learning. And so, or, the anxious ones of like, why am I a car rider today? And we'll have to, just settle them of, remember, everything goes through the office. And so mom did call and now I also know about it, where I can reassure them that they are in the right place. So that definitely has made it much easier.
Excellent.
And I just want to piggyback off of them, back in the days before we had Kid Account, and I know several of you have asked, what is Kid Account? But before this platform, like they said, the parents would call in, the secretary would take the message, it'd either be a note or maybe a text. What if the secretary got busy and one got missed? I mean, it didn't happen often, but human error can happen. So Kid Account has really helped us to, like they said, streamline the process. And I can pull up, any faculty member can pull up and say, how are you supposed to get home today? And they say, I'm supposed to be a bus rider. No, it says here that grandma's picking you up in the line. Oh, okay. And everybody in the building can pull it up. So if the child gets confused or nervous, it helps with that too.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, let me just give a real quick rundown of Kid Account and what it has to offer, and then we'll go back to our tips and tricks, just so that we can kind of have that taken care of. So with Kid Account, we're a modular program that you can use for dismissal changes. Dismissal communication is what we call that, where any dismissals that come through are immediately shared with teachers so they know at the end of the day where to send the students. Are they going home in a car rider line? Are they going home on the bus or walking perhaps? In addition to that, we also offer a car line management where we can scan the car rider or the driver in and make sure that they are an approved caregiver before communicating with either a classroom or a holding area to send students to the car rider line. And what it does, it just speeds up that process. It makes it a lot less chaotic. It can even be a silent process. There's no more walkie-talkies, intercoms, everybody kind of knows where to go at the end of the day. There's other options that go along with it. But we did want to bring everybody together today to just again, these guys have been dismissing students for so long with all types of different processes, just allow you to have a place to just, hey, this is happening in my school. What do you recommend that I try to make it a little bit better? So if you have some questions surrounding that, we would love to answer those. We did have someone ask, can you group walkers in sibling groups like you do in car riders? So would anyone like to take that question? Ashley, why don't you go ahead with that part? Oh, okay. There you go, Jenna. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, you can, and my understanding is that you can group any family, no matter how they go home. And so it's just through an admin setting, and you search those kiddos by last name, or it doesn't even have to be a family group. It could be neighbors that always go home together. And so, yeah, you can group any of the family members, and they will just always pop up on your screen when they come together, depending on how they're dismissed.
They do have to have a common pickup person. So, I would have to be approved to pick up my neighbor's student in order for me to be on their list. But yeah, good.
Which is linked to whatever system you use. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, it goes
Like
through your
my
learning
district uses.
SIS.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. So Power School, Infinite Campus, Focus, just to name a few. Sure, absolutely. Good questions. They ask if we can use like the system to also dismiss for after school. Do any of you guys have after school programs? I think you all did, right? So who did you guys use Kid Account? Or are there any, again, I hate to just keep talking about Kid Account because I really want this to be like helpful across the board, but what tips do you have for dismissing for after school programs?
Well, I would say you need to have, a type of program. And when I say a program, I mean something that is not walkie-talkies and clipboards. That's how, we did it before. But we have a program now that, everything is in this right here. And when the music group meets after school, she has, her music students, no matter how many they are, they're loaded in this thing. And when she gets ready, to dismiss them, she dismisses them with this. She pulls up the roster, she checks them off, or she clicks them off, as they go along. And that's the same thing with our beta club, robotics, any of those whatsoever. And the thing I like about that, is that God forbid something happens, about a child goes home with the wrong person, and the next day, that parent shows up in my office and they're mad and they're upset because somebody else picked up a child who wasn't supposed to. Is, I can go back to that music teacher and we've got, here that person was approved, that person, was somebody that, legally could not pick up the child. It's okay to do so. And just what Jenna said a while ago about the car walkers, I have a subdivision right behind my school, and I never thought that walkers would be some of the hardest ones to dismiss in the afternoon. But that is a security nightmare. But we line all of ours up before they go out the building. I have one person, and that's her duty spot, and she checks them all off, with this thing right here, and then she walks them out, and she walks them literally right across the street to that subdivision, and she checks off, their cards. And again, we have a program. I'm like, man, I'm gonna keep using the name, the kid account name, but I would just advise you to have a program regardless. At this day and time, you can't afford not to have a system or a program of some type in place.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah, we have, there's two different things I wanted to hit was like movement within the building. So we have like, 3 different clubs on Wednesdays. And so supervision with those clubs because our teachers run those clubs. And so supervision of where do these kids go while we dismiss. So we send them we send them to our car lane, our car rider holding spot, and then they just have their own cone in the back. And so they go to that cone. That way we know, should grandma show up in the line and forget about club and actually want to take them, we know where to go find where that kid is sitting. So there's a little bit of management behind just like the movement of it. But we also, our before and after care program, we kind of ran into this, Jenny. I don't know if this will help with your question, but our before and after care program has their own sign in and sign out system because they charge families and they have their own portal. But I want to make sure as the principal, I know who went to SAC that day. And so we've done it 2 different ways. My preferred way, and I don't know if this is right or wrong. I don't think there is a right or wrong. I think Kid Account, will help you troubleshoot whatever works, but we use our SAC program as a bus. So we have a bus that's SAC. That way you just click those students' names and you don't have to like re-go in and dismiss them again. I know the last place that I saw those children was dismissed to SAC. And so having Kid Account and working with Kid Account to set them up as a bus has been successful for us. But we also have clubs set up, and I actually have a situation this week where we are doing our homecoming parade. And so we have a group of students who are wanting to stay after school for that. And so that's really specific, but we can set them up as a club. And so then, tomorrow we know what students are planning to stay after in the homecoming club. So I can just click them just for tomorrow. And our secretaries are key in Kid Account and are key in any dismissal, right? They're the superheroes behind it all. But yeah, she was just emailing me today like, hey, do you know who's staying after? I need to get this club set up in Kid Account before tomorrow's dismissal. So those were hopefully 2 different things, 2 different tidbits to give you about clubs.
I love that.
Can I ask Jenny a question?
Yeah.
Okay, Jenny, your question was like you're dismissing them to their club, and then when it's time for them to be dismissed to their parents from that club, you're having a problem. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Okay, she said yes. So I'm curious, how do you guys handle that? Because we don't ever dismiss them. Like we hold our car riders, um, and students that go to our after school program in one place, kind of like Jenna said. That way, if a parent does come through the car line, they're there and can leave with them. But once the teacher takes them to their club or their after school, no one ever dismisses them there. They're still live in our system
Yeah.
until they're dismissed to a final parent, if that helps you.
Yeah, ours are the same way. We don't go back. Our club sponsors don't go back into kid accounts. So once they're at the club, our teacher sponsors at that point have the old fashioned, paper permission slip that says who that child can be picked up by, and that teacher just dismisses them from the club from there.
Yeah, Jenny, you shouldn't have to be clicking override. We'll do a little training to assist you
Okay.
with that for sure. Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that comes up often that I hear is about human resources. And so, like Ashley, for example, you said you have 700 students. How do you have enough human resources to work a car line, to watch the students, to make sure everybody's getting home safely? Like, what is your plan around that?
It is a very delicate balance. I'm being honest. It's all hands on deck. Everybody knows when it's car line time. With the way we do it is we corral about 20 cars at a time. And so we do 2 groups of 10. So we have a person at every one of those 10 poles. So that's a given. We have people that are out there with our kid account scanning cards, counting the cars. But everybody knows it's all hands on deck. And we have people inside the building. Some teachers supervise like 2 classes at a time. And so they pull up on the screen and they can see dismissal for both classes. But yeah, it's difficult because we have, like I said, 3 separate holding areas. And it's all hands on deck. Everybody's there until the end.
And what about coverage? Like, how do you make sure the students are all being watched? Are they
Well, we have the person that all the students, we come to one common kind of
Oh,
hallway.
okay, you do the holding area.
We
Okay.
do a hallway and then offshoots of that. So like all 700 and something students come to one section. And then they're staying with a teacher until the teacher says, here's their name or sees it on the kid account. They stand up, they go to a line, they line up, and then they get walked to their car, like hand in hand, walked into their car. And with pre-K, we do have to put them in their vehicle first. So
Yes.
that adds a whole nother level of, and we only load 6 of those at a time because it does take putting them in and sometimes strapping them in.
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. Now, Waller, you did a classroom dismissal. Is that correct?
We
Tell me a
do.
little bit. Yeah.
I've done it both ways. I've done the holding area like Ashley's talking about, or I've done it from the classroom. And for the last 4 years, we have been a pre-K 6th grade school. I have one person that does the scanning. That's my guidance counselor, and that's understood. She doesn't do any other duty, but every afternoon she does the scanning for me. Now I have backups, in case she's not there, she's absent, whatever the case is. We load 10 at a time, just like Ashley. Now I have 2 people out, and instead of 10, I have one at the beginning of the line, one at the end. I also have 2 people indoors lining up those 2 lines of 10 using these things. As the kids are coming down the hall, they're saying, "Okay, Sally, you're number 1, Johnny, you're number 2," and we have dots on the floor. I mean, we have dots on the floor. That they know where to go and what to get on. The thing I like about it, from the classroom dismissal is, and I tell the teachers this, now, all right, you don't have duty, until late duty, if you have late duty. So that's time in that classroom that I know we're in dismissal, but if you've got Freddie in your classroom and Freddie needs some help with his middle sounds, or Freddie is not cutting it with his multiplication tables, that's when you need to be working with Freddie. You need to be pulling him back there at the table and working with him, because the dismissal is all up on that ViewSonic board. And with the older kids especially, they can look and see, oh, my name popped up. I see you tomorrow, Miss Smith, and out the door they go. Now I do have, and I'm like Ashley, it's all hands on deck. Our teachers leave at 3:30. So from we start dismissal to about 3:10. Every breathing heart in that building, is helping with dismissal at one way or the other. And at 3:10, that's when we start our late duty or our after school duty, which involves just kind of a skeleton type crew. But it takes everybody, to make it work. My teachers love it, my classroom teachers, because they don't have to walk the kids or, get them out and move them around. So works pretty well for us.
I actually want to ask you a question, Mr. Waller. We've only done the collective group dismissal because kid account was fairly new to us, and we wanted to make sure we got our processes worked out. You like it better by the classrooms?
I do. So I've tried it both ways, but now I like it better because, you don't have as many children in one place, and I have a teacher assigned in the hall that as they're being dismissed and they're coming down, she's saying, get your butt down to the front, hurry up, let's go, keep moving, so that we're not holding up, because one kid could hold up 9,
Yes.
if they're number 1 and they're not there, then, so I have a teacher, that's pushing them, and it just, it works well.
Yeah. Okay.
Ashley, let me know if you decide to go that route. We can do a little training and get you ready to go.
We've got it down to a well-oiled machine right now.
I know it's hard to throw a wrench in there. I love that we're flexible for schools like that. We even have some schools that are hybrid, that will release from a holding area for the littles, and then maybe the bigger kids that they'll do, from the classrooms, and it works out well. So,
okay.
All right. Well, we're getting a little low on time, and I feel like you guys have a lot of valuable tips and tricks to give. So I'd like to just kind of turn the floor over to you and just say, what, if you had a new principal come to you today and say, my dismissal is crazy, what are your top tips? If you could just kind of give us some advice like that. So Jenna, if I can get you to go first, if you don't mind.
Yeah. I would say, kind of actually picking it back off where we just left of like deciding what is chaotic about the dismissal. So like when you come into a school or when you're looking at your dismissal, is it the traffic in the hallways or the holding spaces? Is it the communication, to get to buses or to get to cars? Something that I always looked at was like the layout of the building. So I would love it. I do also agree with Waller. I prefer to do release from classroom. It is just, sensory aware. It's less loud and less, moving parts. But the layout of our building, it takes about 6 to 10 minutes. If you have really little legs, probably 12 minutes to get from one side of the building to the other. So at that point, we knew a holding, route was the way to go. The other thing as a new principal, I looked at not only the layout, but just the parking lot, the flow of traffic. I think that is something that is really important when you're trying to look at dismissal. Like, are your buses, I know one of the schools that I started at, the buses were going around back and kind of pulling up on the side of the school. And I noticed that is a perfect off the roadway car line area that we could do. And so we just kind of flipped where our buses were and where our cars were, and it just allowed for more space and made more sense. So yeah, we started with those things, and then we looked at the communication, whether it was kid account or, prior to kid account, Google, just a Google sheet. And so prior to kid account, we had a scanner, but they walked with their device and typed the student's name in a Google sheet. Now there's no parent verification on that, which is also a pro of kid account, but that kind of communication, we didn't have so many walkies going. And so they just had a smart board on the holding room, and the kids just watched for their name to pop up. And so, yeah, I think those are two things that I would look at: the building layout, the flow of traffic, and just the communication part.
Thank you.
And of course, those two things are probably the most important, but then that piece of safety, like, how do I make sure that child is supposed to be with that person? Just make sure you've really got a good system for that, whether it's a special number that only certain people have. Obviously in kid account, it's a barcode, they scan it and we can see exactly who's allowed to pick that child up, but have some sort of system to make sure you're giving that child to the right person. even if it is a family member, because sometimes that gets a little hairy too when mom's like, no, it's my day, and dad's like, no, it's my day. And, just make sure you have a good system for make sure you get your child to the right parent.
Thank you, Ashley.
Yeah, and going back to resources and the like humans available, that is, I think, a big piece, looking at your staff and do you have enough humans to cover the traffic flow and the security piece? Do you have that? And delegating that out to people. So I know at our grade levels, we have 4 or 5 sections in one grade level. And so because we're using holding spots, one teacher will take all the kindergarten car riders to that holding space. The other kindergarten teacher will take the bus. And then we do have one kindergarten teacher who's a runner, which would be to go and get the kid that's in the wrong spot. But so we take a grade level and we assign roles within just that grade level. And we also have for our buses, for the people that are scanning, we have one leader who goes to that same bus every day. So she learns those kids and learns those names, gets to know the bus driver, and it's a relationship piece too. So just looking at your staff and how you can delegate and be consistent with those roles, because once one of them are absent, it's hard to fill that.
Yeah, for sure. Waller?
Yeah. Well, I would just echo that. Probably the first thing I would do is I would talk to some of my stakeholders. I would talk to some of my parents. I mean, your PTO or some of your parents that you know and you trust and you value your opinion. Hey, how can we improve on this? Or how can we get better? What can we do? Because they're the ones sitting in the car. They're the ones that's actually doing it, and they're actually going through the process. I don't pick up children unless I go and pick up my granddaughter at another school. And so, I don't sit. So I'd talk with them. And then I would also talk to my staff members. I'd talk to my teachers, about it. Maybe your school leadership team. Now, you don't want to, I probably wouldn't you might want to put a survey out there. I don't know. But, sometimes you have too many Indians and not enough, too many chiefs and not enough Indians, if you know what I mean. But I, would talk to a few. Hey, listen, how can we make this better? How can we improve? And that was one of the reasons that I went and got into a program, because I saw teachers that, I would want, of course, I want to say I would want all of them teaching me, but teachers that, just my rock stars, that buddy, by the end of the day or after school with dismissal, they turned into horrible people. I mean, there's no other way for me to say it. I mean, it just, and that's why I said I have got to do something here, to be able to change this or fix this somehow or another.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, if there are any last minute questions, please go ahead and put those in the chat. We can certainly get an answer to you. And we do want to thank everybody for joining us today. I know there was some conversation around Kid Account, and we do appreciate that, of course. And if you want to learn more, you can find us at kidaccount.com, where you can learn about our dismissal communication and car line piece and all of the other things that we have to offer. And just know that we are there we're made of educators. We understand educators, and we also kind of put that into our pricing considerations as well. We help you try to find creative ways to take care of pricing for that. But we do want to thank everybody again for coming out, and that video will be coming to your inbox. So if you have any questions, you can refer back to that. And, again, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.